So we have yet another story here that highlights the legendary levels of pettiness from this administration, and particularly from Trump himself. The New York Times states, the Justice Department has opened an antitrust inquiry into the 4 major automakers that struck a deal with California this year to reduce automobile emissions, according to people familiar with the matter, escalating a standoff over one of the president's most significant rollbacks of climate regulations. In July, 4 automakers, Ford, Volkswagen, Honda, and BMW, announced they had reached an agreement in principle with California on emission standards stricter than those being sought by the White House. The announcement came as an embarrassment for the Trump administration, which assailed the move as a PR stunt. Now, the Justice Department is investigating whether the 4 automakers violated federal antitrust laws by reaching a deal with California on the grounds that the agreement could potentially limit consumer choice, those people said. The Justice Department declined to comment on the investigation, which was reported by the Wall Street Journal. All right, so let me break this down in simple terms for you. What businesses are not allowed to do, okay, or at least in theory, oftentimes I think the government lets the businesses get away with this, but at least in theory, businesses can't collude and price fix. So you can have, different companies as part of the same industry get together and say, for argument's sake, let's just use the internet industry. You can't have all the internet providers get together and say, okay, so we all agree, right? Nobody drops their price below $200 for the minimum level of an internet connection, low-speed internet connection, relatively speaking. And they all get together in a smoke-filled back room and they go, agreed. Nobody drops below $200. Because that's an anti-competitive practice, which makes it so that they're basically all agreeing to price gouge and they're screwing over the consumer. So you can't do that, okay? What Donald Trump and his administration are claiming is by having car companies work with California, where California says, hey man, come on, we got this climate change problem, we got pollution as an issue, let's work together, let's figure something out in terms of fuel efficiency standards that make sense, that are reasonable. What the Trump administration is doing is saying, no, Donald Trump, repealed the fuel efficiency standards left by Barack Obama, and I'm against them. But not only is that the case, if you decide to act and work with a state government to reach intelligent fuel efficiency standards on your own, I'm going to sue you and act like all the private car businesses were colluding and basically price fixing or doing an anti-competitive move here. I'm going to sue you and effectively try to force them to have shitty fuel efficiency standards. Do you understand how insane that is? Do you understand how over-the-top petty that is? You know what a different, more reasonable conservative would do? Even if they say, hey man, I'm against the fuel efficiency standards as a matter of principle because I don't think the federal government should get involved in that. I don't think it's the federal government's business, whatever. Let's say there's Mitt Romney or somebody would argue that. They probably would. But would Mitt Romney try to sue the car companies because they voluntarily said we're going to meet better fuel efficiency standards when they worked with California? No. If anything, they'd be happy. They'd say, oh, this is a great example of my ideology working. The federal government didn't do the right thing, but the state government stepped up and they worked together with the car companies and they reached those better fuel efficiency standards anyway. It's almost like Trump is saying, even if they voluntarily decide, even not working with a state, just on their own, if a car company decided, I want to have perfect fuel efficiency standards, he would say, no, how dare you? I want you to have shitty fuel efficiency standards. So it's almost like he's literally pro-pollution and he wants to force them to pollute. He wants to force them to be worse for the environment. I've never seen levels of petty like this. Well, I guess Sharpiegate was equal to this level of pettiness, but this is extreme. And think of the consequences too. So this is Donald Trump saying, well, the federal government should have no say on the fuel efficiency standards, but even the states I'm going to block from having any say on the fuel efficiency standards, and I'll sue the car companies if they want to improve it on their own. So not only, he doesn't believe in the federal government reigning supreme and setting laws, but he's even against states' rights. He even doesn't want states' rights. He just wants to force car companies to have shitty fuel efficiency standards to make him feel good, to make him feel like he did something wonderful? I don't know. To make him feel like, they're doing his bidding? They're not going behind his back to set those fuel efficiency standards, working with respective states? Whatever it is, man, that is insanity. We're talking about sheer insanity here. It's so hard to wrap your mind around the fact that he did this. Any other Republican president, even if they were against the fuel efficiency standards at the federal level, they would have let the states do it. Of course they would have let the states do it. You're going to go I can't even imagine the reaction from the executives at these car companies when Trump did this. They were probably like, are you, what? You're suing us because we want to voluntarily have better fuel efficiency standards? Are you fucking crazy? How crazy are you? That's insanity. Let me give one analogy here to explain to you how insane this is. Let's say, hypothetically, this is pre-seatbelts, and there's a Democratic administration that mandates seatbelts need to be in every car. New rule, new regulation, seatbelts in every car. Then the Republican administration comes in after and says, wrong, we disagree, no seatbelts. We're going to get rid of that law. You don't need to, it's not mandatory anymore for the car companies to make cars with seatbelts. And then the car companies go, okay, cool, federal government's off our ass, no problem. But they work with a state, they work with California, and in California they say, hey, listen, guys, could you please for our state have those seatbelts in there? Mandatory? That'd be nice if you did that. And they say, forget mandatory, voluntarily, we will put our seatbelts in our cars, for the state of California, and we'll meet those fuel efficiency standards. And then the Republican administration steps in and goes, I'm now suing you because it's anti-competitive because 4 car companies decided to put seatbelts in. That's an anti-competitive practice, and how dare you, we're going to sue you. You're suing them for voluntarily putting seatbelts in? How? Why? What? That's exactly what this is like, except get rid of seatbelts, put in fuel efficiency standards that are reasonable. It's amazing because he has no ideology. He's totally vapid in terms of his ideology. Just total airhead. Doesn't deeply believe anything. But what he does function off of is just personal slights. If he perceives something that you do as a personal slight, he's coming for your head. And vice versa. If you praise him and he thinks you like him, you get anything you want. He is the most petty, unfit, unserious person. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing how childish he is. And I'm not kidding. Like, if somebody, and this is why, like, a lot of leaders have taken advantage of this. I think Netanyahu is probably the best example of this. He just sucks off Trump 24/7, and then Trump's like, yeah, Israel, tremendous, unbelievable. Give them whatever they want. Give them Jerusalem, everything. Give them whatever. Like, that's all you have to do. So anything he perceives as a slight, even the car companies voluntarily deciding, sure, we're going to have better fuel efficiency standards. He's like, how dare you? I got rid of the rule. I said, no fuel efficiency standards, and now you're going to stab me in the back like that? What a little bitch, man. Him and Chrissy Teigen were actually going at it on Twitter earlier today. And he called her out and said, like, John Legend and his very filthy-mouthed wife or something like that. And she responded and was like, what a pussy-ass bitch. He tagged everybody else but her. She was like, he couldn't even tag me. What a pussy-ass bitch. That's so true, man. This story is pussy-ass bitch to the max. It's unbelievably petty and silly and ridiculous. And the consequences are dire because it's going to add to pollution, and it's a terrible policy that he's basically forcing them to have shitty fuel efficiency standards.